Here's the question every single business owner asks themselves all day, every day. How do I squeeze the most value out of my limited budget? This question applies to every aspect of business. How can I stretch my marketing dollars? Where can I get the best deal on office space? How much should I pay my salespeople so I can get some true top performers? And at what point does higher compensation just cost me more without getting me more? But we're not going to talk today about optimizing your spend on marketing or office space or sales talent. We're going to talk about optimizing your spend on security and compliance. Or to put it more accurately, we're going to learn how you can most cost efficiently protect your company from risk, because protection from risk is what security and compliance are all really about. We'll do this by quickly considering these 5 points: the value of technology, the risks technology poses to your business, how you protect yourself from those risks, how you can most cost efficiently protect yourself from those risks, and finally, I'll give you the one action you can take today to achieve that optimally cost-efficient protection against risk to your business. Okay, let's get started. Let's start with value. Technology is a huge asset. It helps you sell. It enables you to serve more customers. It makes your people more productive. It's great for managing your inventory. However, as you deploy more and more technology, you also increase your risk. You see, when you only had a few computers and a few pieces of software, you had relatively small exposure to technology risk. Then you added more computers. You use the internet and the cloud more. You increasingly use technology to interact with your customers and suppliers. More employees are doing more and more work on their computers and their phones. All this technology is how you grow your business, but it's also constantly increasing your exposure to risk. Okay, so let's talk about how technology exposes you to risk. One exposure is that you can get hacked. Some witty hacker typing some cool secret genius code on a keyboard somewhere could get into your systems without you even knowing it. Or they can do what we call social engineering or phishing. That's when they trick someone into clicking an email or giving away their password over the phone. Then, after getting into your network that way, they snoop around inside your network until they get your payroll or your customers' private data, which they then steal and sell on the dark web. Or they can lock your data up and hold it for ransom. That's ransomware, and it's really bad. I'm sure you've heard about the horrific ransomware attacks on companies like CNA Financial and Sinclair Broadcasting Group. And you could be next, because criminals can now literally just order ransomware attacks on demand via the dark web. Another risk exposure is behavior of your own employees. That can be the disgruntled employee you fired who then does some cyber sabotage as an act of revenge. Or it can be a perfectly happy employee who coincidentally sends a file containing sensitive information to the wrong person, or who leaves their laptop in the car and it gets stolen. And these aren't just security risks. They're also compliance risks, because your company is subject to regulations regarding your use of technology. If you take credit cards, that regulation is PCI. If you're in healthcare, it's HIPAA. If you're in financial services, it's the SEC and FTC guidelines. In fact, regardless of what business you're in, at this very moment, as you sit here, you have some set of exposures to both security and compliance risk. So those are your exposures, but the real measure of your risk is business impact. Business impact is what it costs you when one of your exposures results in an actual security breach or a compliance violation. Downtime is one such impact. When you get hacked and lose access to your systems for a few days, you pay employees who can't get any work done. Those are big, painful costs. But the business impact of a breach goes way beyond downtime. For one thing, ransomware payments can be huge. Hackers may even find out how much cash you have in the bank and demand all of it. For another, many of the customers you lose during your downtime will never come back. And of course, a lost customer can't refer you any other customers. So there's a tremendous knock-on multiplier effect of lost future revenue. A security breach also tarnishes your brand reputation. And as we all know, it took a lifetime to build your brand, but it only takes one bad headline to lose it. So loss of brand value is a major, major business impact. And all of this affects your company's value. Breaches make upper management look bad. And when people lose respect for you, it makes your company worth less. Consider MGM, for example. The attack they suffered cost them millions in lost revenue, but their biggest cost by far was that their market valuation plummeted by $500 million. Never underestimate the broader financial impacts of a hack. And compliance violations hurt too. If you mishandle credit card numbers or healthcare information, you get fined, have all kinds of restrictions imposed on you, and again, as we've discussed, take a super painful hit to your customer relationships and the value of your brand. That's why a large percentage of small businesses never recover from a breach, ever. So how do you protect yourself from these risks? Well, you're probably doing a lot already. You had your in-house team and/or an outside contractor install antivirus and firewalls and intrusion detection. Hopefully, they keep your software updated with all the latest security patches. Maybe you also train your employees on your security and compliance policies. You spend a lot on these things, and you hope they work, even though they're all done by human beings, and humans make mistakes. Actually, truth be told, a company's security holes are often created accidentally by their own IT staff, and they're probably not security experts. So it's no shock that in their rush and crush to get stuff done every day, they make mistakes that add to your exposure. And here's another thing. Security vendors make their living selling security. So their job is to sell you as much security as possible so they can keep you as safe as possible while also turning a profit. And that's fine. Profit makes the world go round. But you're not a technical person. So how can you know if what they're selling you is really necessary or if they're selling it because, hey, it couldn't hurt? I mean, it's not their job to stretch your budget. It's yours. So again, your challenge is the one we started off with. How do you minimize your exposure to risk without spending any more money than you have to? Well, I promised you that I'd answer this question, so now I'm going to do it. The way you make sure you spend your money on addressing your real security risks, but don't spend your money on anything that's not a real risk, is this. You get an independent third-party risk assessment. What's that mean? It means you have someone come in who isn't selling you firewalls or EDR or any other security stuff, and you have that someone perform a completely independent, impartial assessment of your exposure to risk. Then, armed with that assessment, you allocate your budget to fixing your most glaring problematic exposures first, and you then work your way down a fact-based priority list from there. And you do this regularly, say every quarter, because your technology portfolio is always changing and your IT staff is always opening up new little holes for hackers. And you keep hiring new people who may be susceptible to social engineering. It's just like going to the doctor. Think about it this way. You don't just go once, you go every year. And every year, the doctor sends a sample of your blood to an independent blood testing lab. And that lab tests the sample for potential health problems. And then the lab tells you and your doctor that, hey, here's something you all need to look into. And that, okay, all these other indicators are totally normal and fine. So finally, here's that one essential action I strongly suggest you take today. Get an independent, fact-based assessment of your company's exposure to security and compliance risk. Your assessment will empower you to do the critical thing every business leader must do. Protect your company from disaster by doing what you need to do while not doing anything you don't need to do. If your firewall's working, great. Don't spend money on a new one. But if there's something wrong with it, fix it and fix it now. And if your employees can always tell when an email is suspiciously evil, also great. But if they're constantly clicking on dangerous links, then you absolutely definitely need to invest some of your security budget on that exposure, because just one thoughtless click could be disastrous for you. You get a medical checkup every year. You look for that certificate from the Board of Health to make sure that new restaurant where you're about to eat is nice and clean. You have an independent home inspector check out the house you want to buy before you buy it. You're always counting on independent third parties to certify that your food's safe, the plane you're about to get on is safe, the gadget you're about to plug into your wall is safe. Please, please do the exact same thing to make sure your business is safe. Do it to make sure that you fix all the problems that are making you unsafe. And do it so you don't waste your money on fixing things that don't actually need fixing at all.